This is the story of my grandpa, Arcot Radhakrishnan, and the effects the partition had on his life. My grandpa lived in Hyderabad, India, during the time when India was a British colony. Before independence, India and Pakistan were ruled as a single colony. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the Muslim leader of India's Congress and Muslim League, argued that the Muslims deserve their own state. Inspired by Jinnah's words, Englishman Sir Cyril Radcliffe, leader of the Boundary Commission, outlined and ultimately implemented a plan for partition. The partition, separating a Hindu-majority India from a Muslim-majority Pakistan, occurred in the same year that India gained independence. Because of fears of discrimination, about 15 million Muslims, Hindus, and Sikhs migrated countries. As an effect of this mass migration, about 1 million people died, 22,000 women were raped or kidnapped, and 220,000 people were declared missing. Before India gained independence, my grandpa's family owned a vast estate in the city of Hyderabad, India. My grandpa still has the estate deed scrolls from 125 years ago framed in his house. The estate had lush gardens where my grandpa would ride his bike and pools where he could splash around with his brothers and sisters. He lived in a paradise of happy childhood memories of swimming and ice cream with his 4 siblings. His closest friend was a boy named Safta. From playing cricket after school to sitting in history class, my grandpa did everything with Safta, and they were best friends for nearly a decade. Safta was like a brother to my grandpa, but Safta was Muslim, and my grandpa was Hindu, a division that would lead to their separation years later. My grandpa was a teenager. The partition occurred. Huddled around the old radio, my grandpa's family listened to a panicked newscaster describing scenes of violence and chaos. Fires raged in Delhi, chaos filled the streets, and Indian military troops were planning on entering Hyderabad. Millions of frightened Muslims packed up their belongings and fled for Pakistan. And part of those millions of Muslims was Safta's family. They left suddenly. Heartbroken, my grandpa did not understand what was happening, why Safta had to leave. Without Safta, my grandpa felt lost and alone, trapped in a world without his best friend and closest ally. He expressed these emotions by writing countless letters to Safta, but a million letters is never the same as one moment together. Like a balloon floating away, my grandpa's contact with Safta slowly disappeared over the years. The partition tore apart many of the relationships of people formerly living together, and not only did my grandpa lose his best friend, his family also lost their estate, car, and money, thrust into poverty after the change of government accompanying partition. Due to the intense, bloody conflict following partition in my grandpa's hometown, his family had to move to the city of Pune. An entire family of 7 crammed into a sticky train compartment on a scorching summer day, with nothing except a giant ice block covered in sawdust to cool them down. The paradise of my grandpa's childhood had ended, leaving a blank canvas for my grandpa to start from scratch. And the life he painted after partition was completely different than he could have ever imagined. 60 years later, my grandpa received an email. About to delete it, thinking it was junk mail, my grandpa spotted the name at the top of the email, Safta. He blinked and read it again. And thus, after purchasing plane tickets, my grandpa reunited with Safta. Safta had been living in Pakistan ever since the partition, while my grandpa had moved to England, America, and then Singapore. And they still contact each other to this day. And to my grandparents, thank you for all you have sacrificed leading up to life in America, for leaving a country where the family had been for decades and starting from scratch in an unfamiliar land. And although this must have been difficult, it has led to my life here, for which I am eternally grateful. I admire you for the stories you have of living in 3 different countries, the wisdom you carry about nearly everything I can imagine, and the love you spread to everyone around you each and every day of your lives. Thank you.